off your phone. Get off your phone. Your photos can wait till later. Instagram can wait until later. Your texts can wait until later. Unless, of course, you're like texting everyone you know going, hey, I'm in Paris, you're not, meh. In which case I support you because I'm petty. Bonjour, mes amis. Today we're going to do a little beginner's guide to Paris. Now, you might be thinking, yes, but you're not in Paris, you're in your condo. True, but I lived in Paris for 2.5 years, and it was really interesting going back because not having been back for so many years, returning last month, it almost felt like going for the first time. This is not an in-depth thing by any means. There's so much information out there in blogs and on YouTube. This is just an observation of some little quirks and things that I think might be helpful should you be going or planning a trip or thinking at some point in my life I will go to Paris. First up, the beret. Unless you're an 85-year-old Frenchman, no to the beret. Did my hair get ruined? I feel like maybe it did, but I'm gonna keep going anyway. Okay, there are exceptions to the beret rule. If you want to wear a cute beret in front of the Eiffel Tower for cute pictures for the gram, absolutely you should do that. That's fantastic. Or if you want to buy a beret when you're there so that when you go back home and someone says, oh, I like your hat, where's that from? You can just be like, oh yeah, you know, it's just a little something I picked up in Paris. Fully support that. So you should totally do that. But those are the only instances. Don't walk around the streets wearing them. No. The scarf, on the other hand, is always a oui. You will see French people in the dog depths of summer still wearing scarves. It's just a thing. And usually it's tied a little bit more stylishly than I have done because I'm not great with scarves, but in the spirit of this video, I will keep it on. In other fashion notes, the palette there is pretty muted. Interestingly, it's a little bit more dressed up than it was the last time I was there. So I don't know if maybe that's the influence of Emily in Paris or style blogs and influencers online. I don't know if that has sort of seeped in, but I did notice a little bit more creativity than I have in the past. So that was kind of interesting, but definitely don't walk around in your sportswear. You don't have to be walking the streets in a ball gown, but you know, make a little bit of an effort, accessorize a little bit and make sure you look nice. When I lived there, my French landlady, I'd gone out early in the morning just to, I don't even know what I was doing, picking up a pastry probably. But I was only going out for 5 minutes. I was in a sloppy t-shirt and a pair of track pants, I think. And I got back and my Parisian landlady was horrified. What are you wearing? And I was just like, oh, I just went out for a minute. And she looked at me like she was explaining it to a child. Yes, but it is not nice for everyone else to see you like this. Fair point. Fair point. So I've always sort of had that in the back of my mind ever since, not just in Paris, but everywhere else. I do still occasionally run across the street in a sloppy mode, but generally for everything else, I make an effort. So valuable life advice. Merci. Merci, madame. So I'm going to roast Parisians pretty hard in this video, but I do want to point out that Paris is full of people who actually lived there. Like, hello? Department of the completely obvious? Yes, it is. But I think people forget because Paris is so beautiful and you've seen it in movies and TV shows, and there is a certain element of feeling like it's not quite real. And people come there and just kind of think it's an extension of Euro Disney or something. So they don't treat it like it's a real place where people live, but it is. Millions of Parisians live in Paris. This is their home. And every week of every month of every year, they are inundated with people pouring into their city, considering that they have to put up with a lot from tourists. And I know, yes, tourist dollars are important, but give them a little bit of grace. Now, having said that, let me get on with the roasting because they do bring it out in me sometimes. And having said all this, remember, I love Paris. I kind of understand the Parisians and I am roasting them with love. So a word about a cafe. Sitting on the terrace at a Parisian cafe is a time-honored way to chill out, watch the world go by, but there are things to know about this experience. Number one, you should absolutely do it. And even if you're in Paris for only a short time, make sure you spend a little time sitting in a cafe and get off your phone. Get off your phone. Your photos can wait till later. Instagram can wait until later. Your texts can wait until later. Unless, of course, you're like texting everyone you know going, hey, I'm in Paris, you're not, meh. In which case I support you because I'm petty. Sorry. I've been filming all day. I'm getting a little bit loopy. And don't get out your laptop. That's just, no, don't do it. Just sit there, unplug, watch the world go by. Another thing you need to know about sitting in the cafe is that being a waiter is a career in Paris. It's not like somebody putting himself through college. This is someone's actual career. They're efficient. They are on it. You might think it's rude. It is just efficiency. So you might be walking up to the terrace thinking, oh, what do I do? Do I have to wait to be seated? Do I just go and sit down? Perfectly fine for you to go and just sit down. If they're set with cutlery and a napkin, don't sit there unless you're going to eat. Because if you just want to have a drink, they will probably move you to another table because that table is already set. The reverse is not true. If you sit at a table that is not set up for eating and you decide you've had a glass of wine and you think, oh, you know what? I could do with a snack. They'll set you up. That's fine. But one disadvantage about the cafe is the smoking. I don't know why I thought that the smoking might have gotten better. People got a lot more health conscious. Apparently not the Parisians. I was honestly shocked by how many people there still smoke. To be clear, when you sit in a cafe, there are tables with ashtrays and there are tables without ashtrays. So you might sit somewhere without an ashtray thinking, okay, I'm safe. You know, oh, these tables are clear. Nobody's going to sit here and smoke. They'll just sit there and grab an ashtray off another table and smoke right next to you. And they just don't care. They don't care if you're coughing. They don't care if you maybe have kids with you. They don't care if you're with an elderly person. You could literally be having a full-on emphysema attack next to them and they would just be looking at you like, buh. And it's not just that they smoke. They smoke these hell cigarettes. There is something just even more acrid in these cigarettes than normal cigarettes. It must be super inconvenient to have to go down to hell and buy your cigarettes from the devil every week, but I cannot see where else those things could possibly come from. Ugh! Well, I really got on my sassy horse with that one. But truly, it's unpleasant. Just bear that in mind when you're having that, you know, magical cafe experience. You are gonna have to deal with some secondhand smoke. Another thing you have to watch out for is bikes. This was not an issue when I lived there, and I don't know if it's because they put more bike lanes in, but so many bikes everywhere, which is fine. That's great. Less cars, more bikes. Absolutely support that. However, the problem is that they don't respect the traffic lights. So when you're a pedestrian and you're trying to get across a busy Paris street, you need to get going because that crossing light does not last very long. And it can be just really difficult to even step off a curb because there is a constant flow of bikes going past and not stopping even though they're supposed to. And if you do manage to step off the curb in one direction, you also have to look in the other direction because even though the bike flow is supposed to go one way, there's always some doofus going the other direction in that same bike lane. So, man, I tell you, crossing the street, really quite a trick in a lot of places because of all these bikes. I actually wasn't sure if I was imagining it, so I asked my friends who still live in Paris, and they confirmed that this really is an issue. So just please do be aware of it. Some other things to bear in mind. Think about your timing before you go. One of the joys of Paris is just wandering randomly around the streets and seeing what you see. But having said that, you really need to check the opening hours at the attractions that you want to go to. Some things are closed on Sundays. Some things are closed Mondays. Some things are closed Tuesdays. You see where I'm going with this? It's mostly those 3 days, but it can be a little bit random. So figure out the things that you absolutely must do and see, and make sure you check the times and the dates. And on that note, a lot of places you will want to buy your tickets in advance, especially during the summer months. Things sell out, and there are a lot of places in Paris where if you just rock up thinking, oh, I'll just go here and buy a ticket today, you might be out of luck. They might have sold out for the day. So if there are particular attractions that you want to go and see, I would book your tickets ahead of time. Another thing about cafes and restaurants is that it's important to have some cash with you, because in a lot of cafes and restaurants in Paris, there is a minimum charge to use your bank card, and that minimum is usually 10 euros. I guess it's for service fee or processing fee or whatever, because they are small businesses, but that's one you really want to be aware of. Another helpful tip is to stay centrally in Paris. If you've never been to Paris and you're not familiar with the geography and you're looking for hotels and you see something that's just outside the city center and you think, oh, well, that's only half an hour on the train. That's totally doable to save that extra, 40 euros a night. That's a false savings, because if you're on your vacation, you don't want to be spending your precious time commuting. And Paris is so walkable that if you're staying in central Paris, you might pay more to stay more centrally, but it's going to save you time, it's going to save you hassle. You're going to be doing a lot of walking in Paris, you're going to be tired. If you need to go back to the hotel to have a little disco nap before you head out for dinner in your evening, you're going to be really happy that your hotel is central and you can get to it easily. Same with shopping. If you've bought a lot of things, you don't want to be hauling it around all day. You can just pop back to your hotel, drop off your stuff, and carry on with your sightseeing. So I would say staying centrally is a must. Yes, you will pay through the nose for it, but in terms of convenience, it will pay for itself, really. Another reason you will need to go to cafes is the bathroom issue. There are not a lot of public bathrooms in Paris. There are some, but I'm not really a fan of the ones that are just out on the streets. There are bathrooms in the big department stores, and obviously when you go to a cafe. Try to time your pit stops with a visit to a cafe and you'll be fine. Another suggestion is to go out early. Paris is not a particularly early rising city, particularly on weekends. So if you want to have that magical Paris all to myself moment, go early. In many places in the world, and even in other parts of France, people appreciate it when you try and speak their language. However, Paris is a different animal. So unless you speak French perfectly and fluently, and with an accent that they deem acceptable, as some Quebecois friends of mine learned to their annoyance. That's right, even though they speak perfect French, the accent was unacceptable to the Parisians. So you can't win, just speak English. It will be much less stressful for you and the Parisian that you are trying to communicate with. Bonjour and merci. Say bonjour when you arrive, and then when you leave, merci, off you go. Another thing you should be prepared for is that if you go down to the banks of the Seine and you walk along the cobbled pathway right next to the river, which you've seen in a million movies and just looks so romantic, it is, but remember how I talked about the lack of public bathrooms earlier? Well, let's just say that dogs are not the only things relieving themselves down along that pathway. So the smell can really be off-putting in some places along there. Don't want to burst your Paris bubble. I just don't want you to be shocked when you get there and have to deal with it. Having said that, that's not every place along there. So there are a million other little tips and quirks that will no doubt occur to me the minute I finish filming this. So I might make a part 2 at some point. I didn't really plan this out. I just kind of jotted a couple of notes down to myself and I'll just freestyle whatever else comes into my head while I'm filming. But please let me know in the comments if there was anything that you didn't already know, or if you're interested in more Paris tips. I can talk about Paris all day long. And if I had a big pile of money, I would be back living there in a heartbeat. So as much as I roast on it, it still has a very special place in my heart. I hope you enjoyed it. It would be great if you would like and subscribe and share and tell your friends and do all of those wonderful things. I always love hearing from you in the comments, so please do give me a holler there. I will see you next time. Au revoir.